大家好，我是 Hugh Jackman， 很高兴能来到中国。
哇！
我爱你。
Isn't that great? A round of
谢谢。
applause. 来，大家掌声鼓励一下杰克曼的中文。
谢谢。
A round of applause. Now, let's take some photos first.
Sure.
Standing here, right? 好，接下来我们给大家提供一个机会，给狼叔拍拍照 ，standing here。从左移到右边比较好。
Middle place.
Parts of China, but never to Beijing. So it's a great thrill. We got off the plane this morning and we had the great honour of visiting the Great Wall. So I've had my workout. We got to the top. Turns out less people go to the top than to the middle. So once you persevere through the middle bit, it was extraordinary. I mean, it is something I'll never forget. It's been a dream of mine to go there, so it was amazing. You have a very beautiful city.
刚才杰克曼说，他这是第一次来到北京，他其实去过中国的其他城市。那么他今天早上呢，昨天的时候他去了长城，他说他爬了长城，刚开始先爬了1小节，他把它当成了一个自己的就是今天的锻炼的一个项目了。
First movie I ever did in America. I'm from Australia, so it was my first American movie experience. I will never forget it. I had to jump through a lot of hoops. I did about 7 auditions. I think it was 9 months between my first audition and actually getting the role. And it was a great joy. And as well as presenting this movie next year, the 7th time I will have played Wolverine in the movie X-Men Days of Future Past will come out, which reunited all the original X-Men, the newer X-Men and the original director. The part has felt like, sorry, there's a lot for you to remember. Do you want to translate that? Yeah.
他刚才说他仍然记得他第一次在扮演金刚狼的时候的那个时候，他说他事实上是真的是经历了7次的这个面试，就是已经过了很多关。他说在第一次面试和最后通知他得到这个角色之间，一共经过了9个月的漫长的等待。So that has been a long 9 months.
Yeah, it was a long 9 months. But I have to say, Wolverine is like a great old friend to me. I've been playing Wolverine for 14 years. And I have children now who, I was playing Wolverine before they were born. They're 13 and 8. And I'm generally pretty calm at home as a father. And I think I don't ever have to get anything more than calm. Because just occasionally, I will show them the Wolverine face and they're a little frightened. So it's good to have that in my back pocket.
赛哥呢，他其实扮演金刚狼已经14年了，但是他的2个孩子，一个13岁，一个8岁，都是在他扮演金刚狼之后才出生的。他说他在家里通常都是非常和善的一个角色，只有在偶尔的时候，他才会突然间露出他这个金刚狼的这个凶悍爸爸的这个表情。
That was a good Wolverine face. I like that, by the way. Yeah, very good. Like, every time I play it, I find something new. Every time the story demands something more of me. And I think the greatest example of that is this movie. I think you see Wolverine at his depth. You see him lower than he's ever been before. You see, in a way, a rebirth of a character, him fully becoming himself. Physically, I'll be honest with you, it gets harder. I like to think that I reach higher heights with it each time, but it's always challenging for me, and always demanding physically and in an acting sense. And this has been the most challenging.
他刚才就说到，他说每一次其实这个扮演金刚狼的时候，感觉都特别的不一样。他说每一次之所以感觉不一样呢，是因为他把这个角色带到了一个更加的深层次。他说，比如像在《金刚狼2》这部电影当中，你会看到金刚狼的一个重生。他说，实话说哈，其实每一次扮演金刚狼都会变得越来越吃力。他说 physically 就是在身体上感觉越来越吃力，而这一部呢是最吃力的时候。Speaking of physically challenging, the director James Mangold, he's directing this film. Is he bringing any changes to this film? More emotional side of Wolverine or more action scenes?
Well, let's start with the action. The action in this is for me, some of the most inventive, fantastic action, I think. It was certainly some of the most challenging, almost dangerous stuff I've done, and I loved it. And people who see the movie are genuinely, they love the action in this movie. But emotionally, this is, in a way, we explore the vulnerable side of Wolverine. He's always been tough, he still is tough. He's very sort of masculine. But in this movie, you see him really struggling with his immortality and living with the burden of regret and pain. Everybody he has known in his life has either died or he's brought some pain to, and he's almost immortal. So living with that is difficult. And so James really wanted to explore that. And in this movie, I said a rebirth. It's like he finds his reason and he finds the love of who he is, the Wolverine.
这部电影的导演 James Mangold， 他其实是把这个动作戏已经带到了一个新的高度，对于他来说非常有挑战性。他说不仅仅是挑战性一说，他甚至提到的是危险这个词。他还提到了，包括在这个《金刚狼2》这一部电影当中，James Mangold 他是加入了很多这个金刚狼内心的很感性的一面。他说在这个电影当中会有很脆弱的一面，会他自己去重新思考。他到底身处在一个什么样的环境？他自己是谁？包括因为他爱的人都已经离他而去了，所以在这个电影当中，对于他来说也是整个的一次重生。Speaking of immortality， 我要问问他关于这个永生这个事情，因为他刚才也提到了。那么我刚刚也在预告片里看到了这个，在这一部《金刚狼2》当中，金刚狼似乎已经不是那个不死之身了。我来问问他。So in the Wolverine in this movie, Wolverine becomes vulnerable and weak and is not immortal anymore. So what's your view towards eternity? Do you want to be eternal?
It's a great question. Wolverine, you're right. He, emotionally you see him more vulnerable, and physically you see him more vulnerable than ever. And the movie, I think, really has a lot to say about life in that it's not necessarily the length of life that matters, but the quality of your life. And having a purpose, having a reason, having love and people around you that matter, that you care for, that care for you. These are the things that life should be measured by, not necessarily just length. And this is what the story is about. It's, in a way, a redemptive story about a man finding his purpose again, finding out who he is and finding out what is important. Me, if you are offering me, Natalie, if you're offering me immortality right here, right now, I would certainly want 24 hours to think about it. But ultimately, I agree with what the movie's saying, in that what's more important is contentment, what you're offering the world, what the quality of your life is day by day, rather than just sort of being here for a long period of time.
刚才杰克曼这么说的，他说在这个电影当中，就是他诠释了这样的一个概念，就是生命的价值不在于它的长度，而在于它的这个质量，它的 quality 是什么样。然后在这个电影当中，他就会去寻思他到底是活着是什么样的目的，他自己到底是谁，然后他爱的人是什么样，他能为这个世界做些什么。然后我刚才问他的是，如果给他一个选择，他愿不愿意变成一个长生不老的人？他这么回答，他说：“我可能需要24小时来考虑一下这个问题，但是可能在经过这个24小时之后，他还是会同意电影里面所说的，生命不在于长度，而在于它的质量，在于他能够为这个世界能够做些什么。关于他自己的满足感，就是一个 content。”
我问一下，这是一个矛盾吗？他怎么看待自己身体的衰老
？All right, that's an interesting question. He said, the Wolverine is immortal. The Wolverine is immortal, but she ages through all the 14 years of you playing Wolverine. So how do you see the concept of being aged?
I certainly won't be able to play Wolverine forever. In fact, I don't know how much longer. It's one of those things, actually, I knew from the beginning, playing Wolverine, he never really ages. So at a certain point, I've either got to just hide in the recluse and just do plastic surgery all the time, never appear except in a Wolverine movie. But I just turned 45 on Saturday. I must admit I'm enjoying playing Wolverine more than ever. Physically, I do notice it gets a little harder, but actually Wolverine is someone who is, and I was 30 when I first started playing him. He's someone who could be anywhere between 200 or 300 years old. And I think being a little older myself helps playing in terms of his experience and who he is. But I have a saying, great parts always outlive the actors who play them. And I remember that every time. I'm grateful for every chance I've had to play it. But at some point, someone will take over. Maybe someone in this room. This gentleman's hair is looking close to Wolverine.
刚才杰克曼这么说的，他说，其实他在第一次扮演金刚狼的时候，他是30岁，然后他在Wednesday or Thursday you turning 40.
Last Saturday, yes.
Oh, last Saturday. Oh, yesterday. Oh, happy birthday. 他昨天他刚过完他自己45岁的生日，他说第一次演金刚狼的时候30岁，然后现在45岁。他其实一直都有心理准备，他自己会慢慢变老的。他也刚才开玩笑说。莫非他可以就是在荧屏之下，他就躲起来，然后去做点这个微整容啊什么的，让自己看起来更年轻一些。但是他没有这么做，他这么说的，他说因为其实金刚狼可能也200-300岁了，在这个过程当中，其实金刚狼也是会慢慢的变老的，所以他自己的这个变老的过程，也是更加帮助了这个角色的慢慢的变老。但是他刚才提到的一句很重要的话，他认为是这样的，他认为一个好的角色。永远是要比一个好的演员要长寿。
The other thing I should say on that, I know I was not the first person to be asked to play Wolverine originally, so I'm kind of like the reserve coming off the bench, you know. And just like in any sport, the people who have to really fight to get on the field, they don't want to be taken off the field very easily. I'm quite happy being on the field right now.
他说其实他当时并不是金刚狼的这个首席人选，就是在他第一次扮演金刚狼的时候。但他这么说，他其实有点像打球的时候一个板凳队员。一个板凳队员在被叫上场的时候，他这么说的啊，你必须要就是拼命的去战斗，你必须 fight for this， 你必须要拼命的去争取，才不会被别人再从场上拉下来。所以这个可能也是他一直就是这么努力的去扮演这个角色的原因。Alright. 他刚才这么问他。
You want me to take my clothes off now?
现在没爱 touch them. 他刚才说就是提到了这个休杰克曼的肌肉哈。I know
I get
you've
in
been
a lot of
working.
trouble with my wife.
Oh, this has been asked a lot, and I've heard you've been working out a lot, even you're not playing Wolverine. So, any tricks of bodybuilding that you can share with us? 我刚才问他有没有什么健身的一些好主意啊？
I wish I could give you tricks.
Not for me, probably for
no,
the
just
guys.
generally. I wish I could. The thing I have discovered after playing it for 14 years is you really need to put time into it. I spend about 3 hours a day. I did, dieting-wise, interestingly, tried something new with this movie, which I have now been doing for 2 years, which has worked really well, where I eat all the calories I need to eat in a certain part of the day. For 8 hours during the day, I eat. For 16 hours, I don't eat at all. That seemed to really help a lot. But I'll be honest with you, my diet and my training came from a very good source, Dwayne Johnson, who's a friend of mine, The Rock. So I rang him, and he gave me the diet, and he gave me the training. And I tried to follow it. I followed it as much as I could, but that's due to Dwayne.
他这么说的哈，就是你别看这个他一身肌肉，女生不把叫男神啊。他说其实没有什么捷径可走。我本来想问问他有什么好方法，他说其实没有什么好方法。他一天花3个小时在健身上面，然后呢，他是有8小时的时间在吃东西。他说他的这个好主意都来自一个叫做 Dwayne Johnson 的人。然后这个人呢，就给他了一套食谱，他就真的是非常严格的去 follow 这一套食谱，去跟随这一套食谱去走。然后该吃的时候吃，不该吃的时候坚决不吃，然后大量的这个健身，所以 there's no shortcut.
Unfortunately not. There is one shortcut. If you want to lose fat, you sit in an ice cold bath for 5 minutes every morning. And I did that for about a month, and it works, but it's kind of brutal. But if you do that for 5 minutes, it helps you burn fat. There you go. Yeah. It's a shortcut in one way, but it's also not very pleasant.
他刚才跟我们分享了一个小捷径啊，他说你如果每天花5分钟待在一个冷库里面哈，一个很冷的地方，他说会让脂肪加速的去燃烧。How long did you spend?
5 minutes.
I know 5 minutes. For how long?
I did it for 1 month. And then I thought, you know what? I prefer to sit on the treadmill for 45 minutes a day than 5 minutes in an ice cold bath.
他其实是有1个月坚持每天5分钟待在一个冷库里面，但是他说实在太残酷了，他宁愿每天花45分钟去健身，去健身，比这个要好得多。Alright, let's take another.
What is great about the end of the movie is it's left open.
Yeah.
And not, I don't just mean as in where he might go physically, but that he's at a point where he's relatively comfortable with who he is. And he's like, bring it on, let's see what happens. Which is always, I think, a good place for everybody to be. But I think it's really exciting. It's obviously, I can say from someone who works in movies in America that the support and the growth of the industry here is very exciting. The cooperation that is happening between China and America in every way is very exciting. I'm from Australia. There's also a lot of cooperation between Australia and China. And I'm someone who welcomes any kind of collaboration amongst the world. I think the more we find the things that unify us rather than the things that divide us, the better.
他是这么说的刚才记者也提问到了在影片，如果你看过诗篇的话，你会知道他这个金刚狼在上飞机了之后，这个机长一直问他想去哪里，但是他说那个先飞起来再说。他刚才 Jackman 就是这么说的，他说这个影片很好的地方就是他就是打开了一个很大的一个口子，有很多的想象可以去填充。他是这么说的，关于下一部电影会不会在中国，他说他很期待，中国是很有趣的地方。他说他会更加希望有很多的合作，比如说他是澳大利亚人，他也见过很多就是中澳合作的这样的电影，所以他说所有的合作的东西总比就是大家各自井水不犯河水要好得多。
I also know that I'm probably maybe not so liked by male actors around the world because I've had a chance to be in movies with Li Bingbing and Fan Bingbing, which is a little greedy in my opinion. But I'm all for those kind of collaborations all the time, please.
他说他认为他自己可能不太受这个影迷和男观众的欢迎啊，因为他在电影当中跟李冰冰和范冰冰都合作了。他说，但是他认为这样挺好嘛，这样的合作他还想再多一些 more of these collaborations.
Part of the mythology of the tragic hero that Wolverine is, there's always, he is heroic, he is burdened by a lot of things. I think it's one reason people, because they revere him but also relate to him. Have I had some bumpy roads? Yes, many. Thankfully, and I don't claim it for myself because I'm not smart enough to have the knowledge for this, but my wife is the greatest thing that happened to me with my kids. Prior to meeting my wife, many bumpy roads. But luckily when I met her, she infinitely made my life better in every way, and she is one of the greatest parts of my life. So yes, I mean, and of course we've had a few bumps on the road.
All right. 他记者问的是，他说，其实他在这个角色当中，他刚才提到了不停的去变得成熟。他想问问，就是杰克曼他在自己的个人生活当中，会不会因为扮演的这个角色而变得更加成熟？
If I was a kid and I knew about Wolverine, and in the schoolyard I'd want to be Wolverine, right? And to this day, there's part of me that I wish was a little more like Wolverine, which is probably one of the reasons I love playing. And I think those qualities which may have drifted into my persona, maybe not. He's someone who's skeptical of organisations, of groups, of philosophies. He's his own man. He thinks for himself, he observes, and he watches from a distance. I'm naturally a far more optimistic, far more trusting, open sort of person, and sometimes that's a mistake, I'll admit. But it's impossible for a character not to drift into you in some way. But I can tell you a little funny story. Recently, my son had a friend over, and it was clear that his friend was a little impressed that I was Wolverine, and he came over to our house not knowing that I was his dad, right? And I heard this kid in the room next to me saying, so your dad's this, and he's Wolverine, and what's it like on set, and what's he like, and after about 5 minutes, my son shut it down. He just said, hey, listen, I've got to tell you one thing. My dad is nothing like Wolverine. He is not cool, he is not tough, he's the opposite, alright? And that was it.